Hi everybody, thanks for coming to this channel, the third section of the Active Directory. Hope you and your entire family is doing well and healthy. And so remember in the previous session we had discussion or had to discuss the domain promotion and the domain demotion and the issues which comes while promoting the domain controller. And I promised you one more thing. Uh, uh, like if any machine you're trying to join with the domain controller, and if you are unable to do so, so what kind of approach, what kind of deep level of troubleshooting that you carried out. So I would be explaining each and everything in this recording session, in this recording. So be with me, and I'm sure after this session you would be very much confident with like how to promote the domain controller and what are the prerequisite that we need to keep in mind when we promote the domain controllers, and what if we face the problem while promoting the domain controller. So I have server 2008 R2 new machine which I built for this lab purpose, and the another machine which I have is that is server 2012 R2. So you can see here, so there is a command winver which we using which we will be using which we will be able to see the version of any Windows. Okay, so if somebody comes to you and say like, hey, could you please go ahead and let me know the Windows version you're using, so at that point in time you can refer this command winver. It is very useful, and it will not only tell you or show you the Windows version, but it will also tell you the build and the and the version, and of course the copyright reserves and everything. You would find all of the informations over here. So this is my root domain. How would you identify whether this is your root domain or not? So the simple way, because it's easy, right? I have one domain controller at this point, and I'm going to promote the another domain controller. But what if you have multiple domain controller in the environment? How would you identify which one is your root domain controller? So I will tell you the way how would you identify first, okay, and then I'll move to the DC promotion. So there is a simple tool we called ldap ldp.exe. So remember this tool or take a screenshot of it if it is necessary. If you're not aware of this tool, you just take a screenshot of it. So as soon as I mention ldp.exe, there is a screen. I mean, there is a LDAP screen, LDP screen comes on the screen. So let me connect this real quick with the same domain controller. So if you're not mentioning any domain controller over here, that means it will be binding this domain controller itself. The port number is LDAP port number 389. I would be separately covering the LDAP authentication, LDAP query, and bind, and how LDAP flow works. So I would be covering that information later on when I would be explaining the PKI infrastructure, or PKI, like what is the uh, PKI hierarchy, what is tier 1, tier 2, and what if I wanted to use LDAP over as I'll tell you the little bit about the LDAP over S. So let me open the MS Paint here in this machine. So as you know, right, LDAP port number which is non-secure is 389, correct? But in the organization, most of the application owner or applications, there is a need, or there is a mandatory, or it's a kind of mandatory that application should be using the SSL port of LDAP. So LDAP as lightweight directory access protocols. S means secure. All right. So the secure LDAP port is 6 36. But for LDAP S, there is a requirement of the certificate. Means you must have the appropriate certificate installed in the domain controller. And where in the domain controller, let me open that real quick for you so that you could have understanding of that as well. So go to run, and type here MMC, and then here click on file and then click on add and remove snap-in. So once you click add and remove snap-in, so these are the tools which you can open and save it somewhere. So basically Microsoft has introduced this feature just because of managing each and everything in one snap-in. Means suppose if I just expand it a little bit, suppose if you want to, these are the often tools that we use in Active Directory, right? The domain and trust, and the site and services, and Active Directory users and computers, and the certificate part. So these are the common tool that we use. So you can kind of making a folder in which you don't have to repeatedly open dsa.msc. You don't have to open mmc to individually go and again add those tools and access those tools. So using mmc you can create a snap-in in which uh, you can add the multiple tools which are useful for you in order to manage the Active Directory, and wherever you want you can save the snap-in. So here I'm adding the certificates. You can see here the certificate. Here there are three types of there are three options right here. The first is for the user account. So there are two types of certificate. The the one certificate is for the user and another certificate for the machine. So based upon that you can choose, like for LDAP we use computer account. Okay, and then finish local computer because we are trying to access in the local computer. So you can see like all of the component which I have added over there. So these are the options showing here, right? So let me go to the certificate and the personal store. In the certificate, so there is one certificate Microsoft PKI, uh, key PKI. Okay, but I really not aware like for which purpose I had been uh, you know placed it here, and also it does not have the proper chaining in the certificate. So when we troubleshoot the certificate part, I would be covering that in later videos maybe. So whenever we troubleshoot any certificate part, we always have to make sure that chaining should be in place. If there is no chaining, or is there, I mean, chaining is incompleted, then your certificate won't be working. So when I'm saying chaining is not completed means your chaining would be looks like personal store, your personal store, your root, and intermediate store. So your certificate should be in these three location, and that is when your chaining would be completed. So let me minimize this real quick. So hope you have a bit understanding of the LDAP pass. So here we are trying to connect it on the simple binding, which is, it's not a simple binding, but we are connecting the LDAP port 389, which is non-secure. Let me click on that. So right now I am connected to the port 389, which is LDAP port, and here somewhere we would be able to see the root domain controller name. So where it is in configuration naming partition, and here somewhere we would be able to see root domain contest naming contest. Okay, so let me see this real quick. Let me try to bind it as well. So if I bind it here, so that doesn't matter because binding is just for the authentication purpose. So most of the time if anybody comes to you and say like my authentication is not working, and then you can go to that particular a particular domain controller and open the ldp.exe, and the same way you connect to that domain controller, and after that, connecting to that domain controller, you can click on the authentication, put the appropriate credential, and then try to bind, then try to authenticate. So if there is no problem with the username, then you will be getting this option like user authenticated as Contoso administrator. If there is a problem, you would be getting the error. So this is very useful because I haven't seen any error when I connect port 389, which is LDAP non-secure. But sometime, like if there is a problem with the certificate and we are trying to authenticate user over port 363, then we would be getting the error. And this is exactly where you can start your troubleshooting. So just keep in mind, and if you're watching this video, just take a snap of it. Okay. So here we have uh, root root. This is what we were searching. Okay. So here we have a root domain controller naming contest, which is dc is equal to contoso dc is equal to com. So remember in the second video, I explained about the domain child tree, correct? So if you have a child domain controller, you have multiple child domain controller. I'll open the drawing here so that we both we all having the better understanding. Suppose this is your root, which is the contoso.com, and then you have your child for different business unit, okay, which is the test.contoso.com. Remember in the last video I told you like the FQTN in the child would be used, I mean child would be using the parent FQTN, but the NetBIOS name would be different. Same goes to same goes for the second child as well in the environment. So in the second child environment, I would be mentioning like mail.contoso.com. So if you are sitting in this domain controller, suppose mail.contoso.com, you're sitting over here in this domain controller, and you are just trying to identify you are the administrator. You don't have any other option, right? You don't have any document, any things or anywhere written that which one is your domain root domain controller, right? So what you could do is like you can go to run, type ldp.exe, then try to connect the server, in which server you are over port either 389 or 636. The only difference between these two port number is like 389 we use for the non-secure, it's a non-secure port for the LDAP, and 363 is for the secure port, secure port, and that is required certificate. Irrespective of the protocol, if you're using S means SSL, then there must be a certificate. All right, so LDP, I think that LDP is pretty much cleared for you guys. And if you have any question, you can post me on the comment section. Okay, so now we understood this is a root domain, and we tried binding the user as well, try to authenticate the user as well. Okay, so let me jump into the uh, server 2008 R2 domain controller. So let me open. So in server 2008 and previous version of Windows, when we promote the domain controller, right, we always run the DC promo command, DC promo command to promote the domain controller. But what if you are having a server 2012 or above version of Windows? How would you do that? How would you do that in this latest version of Windows? So I'll tell you, you can open the server manager console. You can click on start and then click on the server manager console. Let's wait for that to open. Okay, so in the server 2008, the process of installing the Active Directory has been started. But make sure whenever you promote or trying to promote any domain controller in the environment, make sure that machine must have the IP proper static IP address configured in the environment. I mean, particularly to that machine, and also you must have enter the valid DNS IP address so that this machine would be able to resolve the name of the domain controller. So that is very important. So I jump into the server 2012. So here how you can install the Active Directory. So open the server manager console, go to manage, and then add roles and features. So sorry, this Sabron is going on, right? So we have to wait until this get finished. So yeah, that's finished. So we click on the add and add roles and feature. So click on next, role based or feature based installation. So this is what we are doing. So go with the same default option. Click on next. So it will show you the server name in which server you're trying to promote the domain controller. So you can add the other server as well, and you can promote. Like here, the second option is select a virtual hard drive. So if you have a virtual hard drive where you have server 2008 R2 or sorry, server 2012 R2 or 16 R2, so you can select that virtual disk from here, and you can install the Active Directory offline, right? So in case if you wanted to promote that DC, so you have to just browse that image to your VMware if you have virtualization environment, and then you can quickly start that machine, so that machines would be having the Active Directory rule in place. So let's wait for this to complete. In the meantime, let me move to the server 2008. And sorry, guys, don't be confused, okay? Because I'm just moving here and there, so don't be confused. So in server 2008 R2, I have this option, the welcome wizard for the installations of the Active Directory. So click on next. So here just read out all the informations which is here, and then click on next. So here we have two options, right? The first option is for the existing forest, and the other option is to create a new domain in new forest. Means if you want to create the different identity, means the domain forest that we have in the first domain, that is the contoso.com, correct? But if you wanted to have a separate identity, I don't want to have any relationship with this domain. I would be, creating the separate environment, separate forest. And remember, guys, forest, I explained forest, right? It's a security boundary. It's a logical security boundary of the network. So this option you choose when you promoting the new forest in the environment. And this option, if you have already, a domain controller of the forest in the environment, then you could use this option to add as an additional domain controller. So here there are two options. The first option is add a domain controller to an existing domain. Means you are just promoting an additional domain controller to your root domain controller. And the second option is create a new domain in an existing forest. Means here we are talking about the child domain controller, correct? So if we wanted to create the child tree domain controller, then we have to use this option. So let me go with this option. So it is, I mean, here this option, I mean, it is asking to mention the your forest name. So our forest name is contoso.com. Okay, so let me add the credential, and this credential must have the enterprise administrator access. Otherwise, you would be end up failing with your installation. So let me add here the Contoso administrator, and okay. So now you can see the root domain controller is automatically populated. So let me click on next, and default site first name. So let's do one thing. Okay, let's type something wrong password over here, so that I would be able to show you the logs, how we would be able to analyze the logs. So you can see here there is a error that unknown username, bad password. Okay, so how we could identify whether what is there, what is the issue is there, what is the issue? So you can go to the C drive, click, go to computer, C drive, and then go to Windows, and then we have debug. So guys, this debug label analysis, you will nowhere get that right in any videos. So we have DC promo UI. So just open that, go all the way down. So here, here you can see pop-up error, right? So domain controller name is this, where we are trying to connect, and from where the machine is trying to uh, contact and join. But uh, it returns with error 1326, which means this machine is unable to contact to this domain controller. If I open this, because we entered the wrong password, okay? So here at what stage we got this error message. If I'll copy this error message, so you would be able to understand that. So for some reason let me open the binge.com. Okay, and let me type this error over here. It seems a bit slow, but that's fine, I think. Error code usually occur when you try to map a network drive with UB script. Suggestion is that to typo. Okay. Okay, so here you can see, right? This code says like there is either unknown user or bad password is being entered. So that way you would be able to analyze the logs if there is any problem while promoting the domain controller. So remember, right? What logs do we refer? It's a DC promo UI log. All right. So let me close this, and let's try to put the correct password this time, and then let's try to promote this domain controller. Okay, so here we got an option for DNS server, global catalog, read-only domain controller. So read-only domain controller is very important, and I would be, covering that in future slide. So global catalog, uh, I will explain that. Let me start this installation process, and then I will start the uh, global catalog uh, explanation. So here we all know, right? The Active Directory database we called ntds.dit. So under the ntds folder, we have Active Directory database, and all of the Active Directory database, like whatever the object or informations you have, those are stored in the table format. So sysvol Sysvol we know, right? Sysvol contains the group policy templates, right? So Sysvol also very important, and this sysvol and netlogon, these two are the by default share of any domain controller. Means whenever you promote any domain controller, these two folder would be automatically shared in across all the domain controller in the environment. So let me click to next. So one thing I forgot to mention, that in many of the organization, right, in many organization, they don't leave these information in the C drive. They either create a separate drive to keep these information Active Directory in TDS folder, sysvol folder. Because if in case there is a problem with the Windows, right, if your Windows got crashed, or there is something wrong happened with the uh, Windows, then at least these folder or these database would not be impacted. But the recommendation that we get from Microsoft is to always, place these folder in the by default location, like in C Windows, C Windows, C Windows. So click next. So here I have to choose the DSRM mode password. So before I type the DSRM mode password, I wanted to explain a little bit about the DSRM mode password. So what is DSRM? DSRM, a disaster recovery management. Okay, or you can say, let me real quick, because DSRM full form, I don't want to say anything which I'm not sure right here. So it's for inactive, because we have different things with the same name. So let's see what we get. It's a directory service restore mode. So it's a directory service restore mode basically. So what password we set over here, that password is very important. Just let me repeat this. So DSRM password, we get this option while promoting the Active Directory, and this option or this password is very critical. I'll tell you why. So suppose this is your domain controller. This is your domain controller, and for some reason, right? By mistakenly or the accidentally, your administrator have has been deleted the the critical OU. Okay, so due to mistake, your administrator comes and just because of the malfunction or due to the malfunction of the keyboard or the mouse, he had been deleted the OU, which is very critical, because in that OU particularly you have all of the VPs, directors, CEO, chairman, everyone accounts in it. So what you will do in that case? Really? So I'll tell you like how you can do that. It's not that easy, but yeah, I will try to explain that in very easy terms. So every organization we plan for the backup management. Like we take the backup called SSB. We called SSB, system state backup we take. So in system state backup, it basically takes the backup of entire Active Directory, important services of Windows, and the critical program files of the C drive. And if you have a certificate server, PKI server in the same where the domain controller is, it will be uh, backing up those information as well as your COM services registrations details, your certificate details, and the registry details. So it just take the I mean it just contain or take the all information while taking the system state backup. So it's a very important, like every organization they plan for the backup because it's very crucial. And why it is crucial? You can think of this scenario, right? You deleted the critical OU and that has been replicated across all the domain controllers in the environment. How would you, restore that account if you don't have the backup available? Though uh, there is a new feature called or AD Active Directory Recycle bin introduced in Server 2008 R2. But what if your environment doesn't have that feature enabled? Then what you will do in that case? So in that case, we do the authoritative restoration. But how we do the authoritative restoration? We log into this machine, we restart this machine, or we run the command. I'll tell you the command, which is msconfig. msconfig. So if I go to boot, so if I click on the save boot, here there is an option Active Directory repair, right? That is DSRM mode. So once you restart the machine, as soon as you click on Active Directory repair and click on OK, so it will ask you to restart the machine. So once you restart the machine, that time it will pop up. I mean, once the machine has been restarted successfully, it will ask you to enter the username and password. And this time the username and password would be your DSRM password. So you can think of like how important the DSRM password is. And that is why every organization they maintain, either they keep this password in the database like password depot and some other applications or utilities are available on the internet. You can use them to just maintain your password. Or in my previous organization, honestly, they were, we were maintaining the all password in the Excel sheet, but we just only allow the administrator to have a particular access to that particular folder, and that way we were able to manage the DSRM password. So once you enter the username and DSRM password, you will be able to log into this machine. And after that, you have to find the backup. Okay, you have to find the latest backup of the system state, and then you have to do the authoritative and non-authoritative. There are two types of restore that we do. So in this case, like if there is any object recovery you want, so you wanted to recover any individual or the bunch of objects in the Active Directory. In that case, we choose the authoritative restore, which I would be doing that in the practical in future slide. But for now, you just keep this information or keep this in mind that there are two types of restoration in the Active Directory. The first one is authoritative and the second one is non-authoritative, and there is one BMR, bare metal recovery, which I would be explaining in the latest stage of the videos. So that backup and restore part I would be covering in the last session of the Active Directory. But as and when I'll explain anything, the things would be definitely comes, and I will try to explain a bit. I will not wait for the last session, but in the last session, I will be showing you the complete lab, like how would you do the restoration of any object. So in authoritative restore, using authoritative restore from the system state backup, I would be able to restore all of the users or OU or the bunch of users that I have. Hope you guys understood this. So let me jump into the server 2008 R2 over here and put the DSRM password. So I'm going to put the DSRM password the same as my first DC. Okay. So if you there is an option for all the setting if you wanted to export all of the information on the desktop, so you can just type the confi on the desktop, and then it has been somewhere comes on the desktop. So you can see our DC promotion for the additional domain controller has been started. Let me click on the reboot on completion. So once this process will be completed, the domain controller will be restarting automatically, and and once the domain controller would be will be restarting, that means your installation for Active Directory has been completed successfully. So as I mentioned, uh, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the global catalog. So what is global catalog and how global catalog works. So GC, GC global catalog, uh, having port number 3268. Okay. So the full form of GC is global catalog, and the port number that it has been using 3268 is for the non-secure, and for secure the port number is 3269. Okay, and what is GC? Because you must be having a bit, little bit information of the GC or knowledge. So I would like to explain that uh, in very simple terms. So what is GC? So GC is nothing but it's a partition. GC is a partition of every DC. Like if that DC is GC, then there will be a dedicated partition for all of the database. Okay. So how we can say in other words, and what does this GC do? So GC basically store the information of the partial attributes. Pass, we call it pass. Okay. So basically, uh, I'll tell you a very in very practical way. So this is your root domain and this is your child domain. Okay. And as you know, like domain domain naming context is for within this domain, right? If this domain controller is the contoso.com, so this domain naming contest you won't be able to access it here. Means DC is equal to contoso, comma DC is equal to com. You won't be able to access this domain partition over here in the child. So what if, like if you have a user, you can think the scenario like you have user sitting in this child, and from sitting into the child, right? This machine is trying to access some resources which is there in the root domain. So how would that user or that domain controller knows like where I have to go for the authentication? So in that case, if this DC is GC global catalog and this DC is also GC, so both of the GC store the information of the partial attribute set for each other. Okay, for each other. So suppose you're trying to access some share 101, and that share is here in the parent domain. Okay, so you're trying to access it here in the domain controller, your root domain, and you're sitting here in this machine. So how would you be able to do that? The first thing this machine does is like it will go for the DNS server. It will go to the DNS server and query this, resolve this name, and then it will do the three-way handshake, TCP IP handshake over 445, which is SMB port. SMB port, correct? Great. Okay. And after that, when it will go for this SPN, this server SPN, to this child domain, this child domain will check the SPN within its own directory partition. I mean uh, domain partition or domain naming context. If this guy will not be able to find, then this gentleman will try to look into the GC partition or the pass attribute, and eventually if it will find the information in the pass, it will redirect this user for the authentic, it will redirect for this machine to this root domain controller to go and access the share. And this domain controller will say like, hey, I have these informations with me, I have your information, your pass information as well, like users attribute, and I'm allowing you to access this share. But there is a lot of things happen, like in this domain controller we have DC discovery, which I would be covering in the later stage of, I mean, not in later stage, but in the fourth video, fourth series session that I would be covering. So I will explain about the DC discovery, which is very essential or very important uh, task, like every time the client and domain controller does. So these are the GC definition. I hope the global catalog is clear. If you wanted to learn more about the global catalog, then I would, oh sorry, my Google is not working for some reason. There is some certificate issue that I would be checking after this session. So global catalog. So global catalog, or else you directly go to the Google and check for the global catalog. So you would be having a better understanding. So let me go to this domain controller. So my server 2008 R2 has been promoted successfully. So let me type my enterprise administrator account detail over here, and then I type the password. So okay, so this Windows is asking me to activate the Windows, but unfortunately I don't have the license right now, but I would be buying the license soon. All right, so this domain controller has been promoted successfully. So this pop-up came for asking to update the VM tool. So you can see like I have successfully uh, promoted the domain controller. You can see the same domain controller here. Each and everything has been replicated because it's very small infrastructure, right? I will tell you one more scenario. It's very small infrastructure, but I will tell you one more scenario which is very interesting. So suppose you have a kind of this domain, this contoso.com forest. and you have multiple domain controllers. The one is in US, UK, in India, and it could be in Poland. Okay, so let me type UK, and then we have USA, United States of America. Then we have Poland, and then we have India. So all of the machines are having the intersite connection because they all are connected to intersite, which is having a 15-minute by default replication time. 15-minute intersite. Okay. So, and this location, UK to US location, having 100 Mbps, PS, MB, Mbps of bandwidth speed, and US to Poland, we have 50 Mbps speed, and Poland to India we have again we have 2 Mbps because we have very less user over here. Mbps, PS, and same goes to here as well. 2 Mbps. So as you can see, like both the links in India, right? Either it is coming from UK or Poland. They both are having very less bandwidth. So if suppose your domain controller is for some reason it went down, okay, and you have almost a big database, means you have 5,000 of users and other objects, the computer objects same as users. So that's big number of users, and that is, I mean, if there is a big number of objects in the Active Directory, then of course the database size would be also high, right? It would be uh, also high. So what we will do, right? If we will promote the new domain control over here, then entire replication, I mean entire link will be freezed. Either we promote it in the off working hours, right? This domain control will promote off working hours, or if in the business hours you promote this domain controller, the entire domain controller or the link will be freezed, okay, and the objects would not be replicating. So in that case, what we do, like we create a IFM. Okay, so IFM full form is information media. You can check that in Google, guys, because it's been a long time when I seen this IFM. But I know we create the information media. So what this information media does is, like in administrator sitting in the US, he will create the DVD or CD, or in the USB pen drive, he will create the IFM. In IFM, all of the database of the Active Directory would be imported to this media. And what happened after that is, like the US administrator courier this DVD to this India location, and after you know, after courier this DVD to the India location, the Indian administrator what he will do is, like he will put this IFM media and copy all of the Active Directory users and computers, I mean the entire database information in this domain controller. So you can think, right? Once you promote the domain controller, in the previous scenario, we are going for each and everything to either UK based upon the connection or the automatic connection KCC created, and either you're going to the Poland to copy all of the information. But and that causes the site, I mean the link freezed issue, right? It will be just choked up. So using IFM, even though you don't have a great speed in the India side, but you still have a database CD or DVD with you, using which you would be able to restore your uh, you copy your all the Active Directory entire information in it. Thank you very much, guys. I know we have domain join part left today, which I would be covering in the tomorrow session. So don't worry at all. Trust me and be with me. I would definitely help you to achieve your dream. Thank you very much and have a great day ahead, guys. Cheers. Thank you.